Alright, boys, girls, and scallywags of all ages, this is your host, Chocolate Thunder Man, and we are bringing you today the most dastardly of duos, the best partners in crime in all of Ixalan. Say hello to Malcom and Breeches. One's a keen-eyed navigator, and the other one's a brazen plunderer. And let's see, Malcolm's got flying, Breeches has menace. One to terrorize the skies, and one to make you crap your pants on the land, or the sea, whichever way he decides to fight you first. But I digress. They both share the ability text when one or more pirates deals damage to your opponents, combat or non-combat. Whether it's from a range or from close up, these two scallywags will love to knock your lights out and take your treasure to boot. And speaking of treasure, Malcom makes treasure whenever one or more pirates deal damage to you, and then Breeches steals cards off the top of your opponent's libraries. And just to clarify, these guys trigger whenever one or more pirates hit an opponent. So you can have 1 or 1,000 pirates hit one person, it'll only trigger once. But we have some pirates in here that can hit multiple opponents at once, so you get all 3 triggers at once. But without further ado, let's get to the profile. And for starters, we're gonna go off with the red side of the pirates. We got Crimson Fleet Commodore, Brazen Freebooter, and Toggo Goblin Warsmith. While not technically a pirate, he does help out with what this deck wants to do. Crimson Fleet Commodore's got Trample and gives you Monarch as soon as he steps onto the bow. Brazen Freebooter boots out a treasure token as soon as she hits the board, and Toggo Goblin Warsmith basically has rocks enter the battlefield anytime a land enters your side. The rocks equip for 1, and by paying 1 and tapping the creature, they can deal 2 points of damage to any target. You make a bunch of rocks, give them to all your pirates, and just lob them at your opponents, and since it's still a pirate itself causing the damage, they'll trigger off of Malcom and Breeches, and your combo game will be insane. And speaking of combo game, we got Cadiz, Embreth Shieldbreaker, and my lovely Izzet the Fervent. We got Cadiz over here that states, whenever a commander you control deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. So basically, while this thing's on field, Malcom hitting one person auto hits the other 2, so you get all the triggers just from smacking one person. And if you're lucky enough to get Breeches as well, have them both hit 2 separate people, and just from 2 attacks, you're getting 6 triggers. You got Embreth Shieldbreaker with Battle Display that destroys an artifact. And while its creature side's only vanilla, it's still a nice body for what it does. And now, finally, we got Izzet the Fervent. It's a indestructible haste god from Amonkhet, and she cannot attack or block unless you got 1 or fewer cards. I have her in here, though, because of her ability that says, like, ditch a card, deals 2 damage to each opponent. Now, you're probably thinking, why do you have this in here? She's not a pirate. And you are correct. However, we do have a nifty little enchantment here called Arcane Adaptation that basically states you activate it, choose a creature type, all creatures on your board and that you don't yet control all become that type. So I play that, make her a pirate, and she basically pays for herself, assuming that I still have cards in my hand to discard. But with her and Malcom, and as long as I got 3 of their opponents, I'm basically going infinite. And speaking of things that can hit multiple people, we got Lightning Rig Crew. Also, we got Fanatical Firebrand, and then just a fun card, Boarding Party. Lightning Crew allows me to tap it to deal damage to each opponent, and as soon as I cast a pirate spell, untap them. So with Malcom, just tap, sacrifice a bunch of treasures, cast more pirates, untap Lightning Rig Crew, and I basically get nearly infinite mana, and as long as I got more pirates, I can keep the fun going. Got Fanatical Firebrand, haste, sack it, deals damage to target creature or player, helps to proc Malcom and Breeches. And finally, we got Boarding Party. It's got haste and cascade. It lets you look cards at the top of your deck until you find one with a lower converted mana cost, and then you can just cast whatever's on top. And for all intents and purposes, it's basically vanilla pirate, but it's still a nice body for what it does. And speaking of nice pirates, we got Dire Fleet Daredevil, Port Razor, and Fathom Fleet Swordjack. Dire Fleet, whenever ETBs, steal a card from your opponent's graveyard, whether that be instant or sorcery, and cast it for any mana of any color until the end of that turn. So snatch whatever nasty little thing your opponent's got and take it for yourself, just like a real pirate would. Now we got Port Razor. You probably remember him from the last deck profile if you watched it, but if not, let me remind you real quick. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, untap each creature you control. And then after this combat phase, there's an additional combat, but there is a catch. Port Razor is incapable of hitting the same person twice, which is probably a good thing, because as much as we love being a bunch of unfair degenerates, that would be kind of broken if you could just smack the same player over and over again for infinite combat steps. And then finally, we got Fathom Fleet Swordjack. Whenever it attacks, it deals damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking, equal to the number of artifacts you control. Malcom makes artifacts all day, so the longer you manage to keep Malcom around, the more damage Fathom Fleet can deal before it even hits something. And it's got Encore, which allows you to exile the card from the graveyard, and for each opponent, make a copy of it. It gains haste, and they're all sacked at the end of the turn. But what's really nice is that you Encore Fathom, ping 3 opponents with his ability, and then you just make 3 more treasures. That is borderline insane, and I absolutely love it. And finally, for the red pirates, we have Impulsive Pilferer and Coastline Marauders. As you can tell right here, they both got Encore. When Impulsive Pilferer dies, you make a treasure token. Encore. Make 3 copies. Boom. Coastline Marauders. I love this one specifically, especially against landfall decks, or just decks that ramp up, because whether they intend to or not, they're basically cultivating their own demise. Pun intended. Anyway, this little sucker's got Trample. It's a 0/3, but whenever Coastline Marauder attacks, it gains +1/+0 until end of turn for each land defending player controls. It may not seem like a threat immediately, but if you do not handle this sucker the moment it hits the board, it can get out of hand fast. And now, let's get to the blue pirates. We got Daring Saboteur, Sailor of Means, and Merchant Raiders. Daring Saboteur, by paying 2 generic and a blue, can't be blocked this turn, and as soon as it hits someone for combat damage, you can draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. Looting, very nice, and very on theme for pirates. Sailor of Means is basically the blue brazen freebooter. Whenever it ETBs, you create a treasure token. Simple as that, but it's a 1/4, so it's got a nice defense stat. And then we got Merchant Raiders. Whenever it or another pirate ETBs, just tap a creature, and as long as this thing's still alive, it does not untap. And next we got Prosperous Pirates, Trove Tracker, and Amphibian Mutineer. Whenever the pirates enters the battlefield, it's basically Sailor of Means on crack, makes 2. Trove Tracker, whenever it dies, draw a card, and Encore, make 3 copies. Assuming you got 3 opponents anyway. And finally, the one I really like the most, Amphibian Mutineer. Whenever ETBs, exile up to one target non-salamander creature your opponent controls, and then they make a 4/3 blue salamander creature token. And then boom, Encore. So late in the game, you just exile like 2 or 3 creatures that are annoying. Sure, they get a salamander to replace them, but honestly, it's just the price of doing business. And speaking of which, we got Mizium Meddler, Warkite Marauder, and Siren Lookout. Mizium Meddler, while not a pirate, still very nice. You can flash it in, and you can basically redirect any kill spell that would be headed for Malcom, Breeches, or any one of your more important pirates, and just redirect it for him, basically allowing him to take one for the team. Then we got Warkite Marauder. It's got flying, it's a 2/1. And then when it attacks, target creature defending player controls basically just becomes a 0/1 do nothing. It's very nice. And then we got Siren Lookout. Whenever ETBs, it explores. That basically means you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you add it. If not, you can dump it or keep it on. Either way, it's a +1/+1 counter. Becomes a little more buff, and it's smacking and terrorizing your opponents for just a little bit more. Now, we got Siren Storm Tamer, Zerfleet Admiral, and Hull Breacher. Siren Storm Tamer's got flying, and for blue, you can sack it to counter target spell or ability that targets you or a creature you control. Very small, very nice. What more can you want in a pirate? Zerfleet Admiral makes you the Monarch as soon as you ETB, and on the off chance you lose the Monarch, the player you're attacking that has the Monarch is incapable of blocking a Zerfleet Admiral. So you lose the... So what? You lose the Monarch. Super easy to get back. And then we got Hull Breacher, a nasty, nasty little sucker. Whenever an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, make a treasure token. Oh, by the way, it's got flash, so they try to play some crap like Blue Sun Zenith, draw like 14 cards, flash on a response, and then bada boom, bada bing, you are making 14 treasures. If that's not highway robbery, I don't know what is. And finally, we got Esior, Ward Wing Familiar. Flying 1/3, spells your opponent's cast target one or more commanders you control, cost 3 more to cast. So when Malcolm and Breeches get on field, they're already going to be enemy number 1, so this thing just makes their survivability just a little bit easier. And next, we're going to go for the support spells. Starting with the red ones, we got Gravitic Punch, Hijack, and Makeshift Munitions. This card right here, Gravitic Punch, allows you to make your creatures deal direct damage to your opponent, further allowing your pirates to trigger Malcolm and Breeches without needing to go into combat, therefore saving up blockers if you need to. Oh, and it's got Jumpstart. Discard a card, pay its mana cost, and you just repeat the effect again. It exiles the card, but I mean, it's a small price to pay for progress. And speaking of prices, we got Hijack. It allows you to gain control of target artifact or creature until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste till end of turn. So you can steal your opponent's stuff and then just smack them with it. Or, if you really want to get cheeky, you can target your own creatures and then give them haste prematurely. And speaking of stuff, we got Makeshift Munitions. For 1 mana, you can sacrifice an artifact or a creature. Makeshift Munitions will deal 1 damage to any target. So, a little combo I like to do, you can use Hijack, steal your opponent's commander, or any mana rocks, or just artifacts that they need for survival. And then once you're done using them, you can just have Makeshift Munitions blast them right back at your opponent and just show them what for. And now for more fun stuff, we got Bolt Bend, Ley Line of Combustion, and Jeska's Will. Bolt Bend costs 3 less to cast if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. That's not too hard, considering we can either cast them ourselves or steal them from our opponents. It allows you to change the target of target spell or ability with a single target. So basically, if your opponent's going to try to counterspell you or target one of your guys, you can use Bolt Bend to redirect it towards another spell, provided that it only targets 1 person. Next, we got Ley Line of Combustion. If it's in your opening hand, you can just play it out of your hand for free. Very nice. And while it's on the board, whenever you and 1 or more permanents become the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, Ley Line of Combustion deals 2 damage to that player. So they try to hit you, your creatures, for whatever reason, they basically end up getting burned for 2 points of damage every time they try to remove your stuff. That will make them definitely think twice. And if not, I mean, they still get a little something for the troubles. Speaking of trouble, we got Jeska's Will. When you cast this card, you can choose 1 mode, but if you control a commander, you can choose both modes. The first mode allows you to add red mana for each card in target opponent's hand, and the second mode allows you to exile top 3 cards of your library, and you can cast them this turn. Actually, not cast, play. You can play them this turn. Which means if you exile just all 3 lands, and you somehow manage to get more than 1 ways to play them, you can play all 3 lands in a turn. And now, for more fun stuff, we got Pillage, we got Lightning Strike, and we got By Force. Pillage allows you to destroy target artifact or land, and it can't be regenerated. Next, we got Lightning Strike. It deals 3 damage to target creature or player. And finally, we got By Force. Destroy X target artifacts. With as many treasures as you finna have up, and you're up against a board full of nasties, you basically have an artifact board wipe, provided you stored up enough treasures for the fire. And speaking of fire, we got Fiery Cannonade, Welding Sparks, and Furnace Celebration. Fiery Cannonade allows you to deal 2 points of damage to each non-pirate on the field, so your guys are basically safe. Welding Sparks deals X damage to target creature, or X is 3 plus the number of artifacts you control. And then we got Furnace Celebration. Whenever you sack another permanent, pay 2 mana. If you do, Furnace Celebration deals 2 damage to any target. So by sacrificing your treasures, if you have any extra mana left over, you can basically weaponize them all. And frankly, I think that is actually really cool. Finally, we got Shock and we got Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and Shock deals 2 damage to any target. Pretty straightforward. And now, we're going to get to the blue stuff. Alright, we got Confiscate, Supreme Will, and Preordain. Confiscate for 6 mana allows you to enchant permanent and then steal it. Supreme Will is a flexible spell that allows you to counter target spell, unless its controller pays 3, or you can look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 of them in your hand and the rest at the bottom of your library in any order. And then we got Preordain. Scry 2, draw a card. What more could you want? Next, we got Forceful Denial, Callous Dismissal, and Negate. Forceful Denial allows you to counter target spell, and you get to Cascade. Callous Dismissal allows you to return non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and you get to amass 1. You make a 0/0 army creature token, and then put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then negate just counters non-target creature spell. Or non-creature spell. My apologies for that. Anyhow, next we got Aqueous Form, Arcane Adaptation, and Jace's Triumph. Jace's Triumph allows you to draw 2 cards, but if you control a Jace Planeswalker, you draw 3 instead. Aqueous Form makes enchanted creature incapable of being blocked, and whenever it does attack, you scry 1. And then Arcane Adaptation, the enchantment I mentioned before. As it ETBs, choose a creature type. Creatures you control are the chosen type in addition to others, and the same is true for creatures you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. So basically, for all the creatures in your deck and that you steal from your opponents that are not pirates, they get to join your merry band of ne'er-do-wells and just add into the chaos. What more could you want? Next, we got Depths of Desire, Disdainful Stroke, and Curiosity. Depths of Desire bounces a target creature to its owner's hand, and you make a treasure token. Disdainful Stroke counters target spell with converted mana cost 4 or greater, and Curiosity allows you to enchant a creature, and whenever it deals damage to an opponent, you draw a card. So let's say you're using Hazoret. You enchant this onto Hazoret, and you got Arcane Adaptation. You pay 3, paying each of your opponents for 2 points of damage, discard a card. And then Curiosity allows you to then draw a card right back. So with all of those 4 cards available and 3 mana beforehand, you basically go infinite and are able to kill your opponent right on the spot. That's pretty nasty, even for pirate standards. Alright, next we got Essence Scatter, Stealth Mission, and Lookout's Dispersal. Essence Scatter allows you to counter target creature spell. Stealth Mission allows you to put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, and it can't be blocked this turn. And then Lookout's Dispersal costs 1 less mana to cast if you control a pirate, and then counter target spell unless its controller pays 4. Pretty self-explanatory. Finally, we got Kasmina, Lazatep Plating, and Jace Wielder Mysteries. Kasmina makes it so that spells your opponents cast that target a planeswalker or creature you control cost 2 more. And then you create a 2/2 blue wizard creature token, draw a card and discard a card by minusing for 2. Lazatep Plating allows you to amass 1, and then you and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. And then finally, we got Jace Wielder Mysteries, which is basically a laboratory maniac on a budget. And you can tell because its passive ability states, if you draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. By plussing 1, target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into the graveyard, and then you get to draw 1. And then his -8 allows you to draw 7 cards. And then it says if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. That's pretty nice if you ask me. And now we're going to get to the artifacts. We got Hero's Blade, Grafted War Gear, and Mask of Memory. Mask of Memory allows you to draw 2 cards and discard a card if you deal combat damage. Equip cost is 1. Grafted War Gear gives equipped creature +3/+2, and whenever the War Gear becomes unattached from a permanent, sack it. It's got equip 0. And then Hero's Blade. It gives the equipped creature +3/+2, and whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can auto-attach Hero's Blade to it. Its equip cost is 4. And then we got Lightning Greaves and Smuggler's Copter. Equipped creature has haste and shroud. Equip 0. And then Smuggler's Copter is an artifact with flying that states whenever it attacks or blocks, you can draw a card. If you do, discard 1, and then crew 1. To crew, you basically just tap a creature, and then it auto becomes a creature till the end of turn. And now we're going for the lands. Alright, we got Unclaimed Territory, Swift Water Cliffs, and we got Castle Embereth. Unclaimed Territory, by ETBing, you can choose a creature type, makes a colorless or a mana of that color, mana of any color, but you can only use it to cast that creature type. So choose pirates, you make red or blue mana. Or any color, really. And next we got Swift Water Cliffs. Enters the battlefield tapped, and then when it enters, you gain a life, add blue or red. Castle Embereth enters tapped unless you control a mountain. You can add red, or pay 1 and double red and tap, and then creatures you control gain +1/+0 till end of turn. So get a bunch of pirates, or whatever you steal from your opponent, and then bum rush them. Next, we got Training Center, Path of Ancestry, and Spire of Industry. Training Center enters the battlefield unless you got 2 or more opponents. Path of Ancestry enters tapped. However, you can add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. When that mana is spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, you get to scry 1. Then finally, we got Spire of Industry that says add colors to your mana pool, or you can pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, but you can only activate this ability if you control an artifact. But we make treasures like crazy, so please, that's nothing. Now we got Terramorphic Expanse, Mobilized District, and Opal Palace. Terramorph is basically... What is the card? Yes. It's basically Evolving Wilds. So you get to crack it, search a basic land. You got Mobilized District, which allows you to tap for colorless and pay 4 mana, and it becomes a 3/3 citizen creature with vigilance until end of turn. It's still a land. But this ability costs 1 less to cast for each legendary creature and planeswalker you control. So basically, if you somehow manage to have 4 or more, you can basically just activate this ability for free every turn. And finally, we got Opal Palace. Tap for colorless or pay 1 and tap. Add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. If you spend this mana to cast your commander, it enters the battlefield with a number of additional +1/+1 counters on it, equal to the number of times it's been cast from the command zone this game. So cast Malcom or Breeches 2 or 3 times, and they get that many counters. Alright, we got Dwarven Ruins, War Room, and Selûnite Temple. The Ruins comes in tapped, same with the Temple. You can tap them for the respective colors, or you can tap them to sacrifice each one of these 2 lands to make either double red or double blue. So good in the early game and amazing in the late game. And then we got War Room. Tap for colorless or tap 3. No, pay 3, then tap. Pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity, and then draw a card. And then we got the classic command tower. Add 1 mana of any color to your commander's color identity. And then, over here, we got a bunch of islands and a bunch of mountains. There are 9 mountains and 11 islands, to be exact. And that right there is the end of our deck profile. If you like the content that you watched, please leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. And if you look at the links and below the video, you'll see my Discord and you'll see my Instagram. I try my best to upload as consistently as I can. Sometimes I won't be able to just because I got things going on in my life, but if you really want to see more of my content, just pop onto one of those 2 things, and I'll try to upload a video at least once a week. So if you want to see more content like this, just give me a subscribe, and if there's anything else you want to see, leave it in the comments down below, blow up my Discord, blow up my Instagram, let me know what you want to see. If this stuff bores you, I'll do something else, but don't be giving me radio silence, because this is a 2-way street. Anyway, this is your host, Chocolate Thunderman, signing out, and he's about to enjoy the spoils of his conquest. Yo ho, a pirate's life for me.